Okay, so next we are going to discuss about the mental health issues. Remember, in the previous lecture we discussed about employee assistance program and why it should be offered, what are the advantages and disadvantages, whether we go for internal resources or external resources, how we can offer this kind of program to help the employees, what are the major problems that people have and how it is going to affect the outcome. Now, what we are going to discuss is that the idea here is to see that how mental health issues are going to be considered as a problem and what needs to be done as a part of the counseling, right. So, in this session we are going to talk about the mental health issues, right. So, if you look at this which talks about mental health. So, what we are going to see that how what does it mean when if you talk about the mental health, right. So, if you say that it is mental health, does it mean there is some kind of problem with the person? Okay. So, it is not physical health where you have certain symptoms like a fever or something like that, or you have a cold. Okay. So, you can say that yes, you have a physical health problem, but when it comes to mental health problem, it is not very easy to recognize and identify that you have a problem. Okay. And that is what I have been repeatedly telling, that recognition of a problem is the most important thing when it comes to mental health. Mental health is related to your behavior, right. So, when I am talking about behavior, it means that if you have deviated from the track, it means if you are not going to show normal standard behavior as expected, then probably you have this kind of problems, right. For example, you can identify if a person has been very regular in his attendance in the office, but sometime of late you find that he is coming very late to the office, he is leaving early, he does not interact and talk to the people, then you can say that it is not a normal behavior. So, it means that he is deviated from the normal behavior, right. So, when we say that he has deviated from the normal behavior, it means there are certain issues involved and there could be some reasons behind that, and this is what we call mental health issues, right. Now, if you look at mental health, it has become a big menace, okay, and the cases related to the mental health are increasing, because you know that the kind of challenges, that the kind of responsibilities, that kind of things that is happening, okay, in our field and even in the external pressure is so high that these kind of problems are going to happen to all of us in near future. The idea is that you should be able to recognize that yes, you have a problem, and then how are you going to cope up with this. Counselors, others are going to help you, but it is very important for you to see that how you can help if there is a problem. Okay. So, whenever you recognize that there is a deviation from the normal behavior, then there could be mental health issues, right. For example, you find that a person who has been very talkative and suddenly you find that he stopped talking, okay. He does not interact with the people, then there must be some issues behind that. Okay. I am not saying that he may be having a mental health issues, but there could be some reason behind that. Okay. It could be normal anxiety or stress or something like that, but that also needs to be looked into, because if you do not look into these issues, then the situation may be grave at a later stage and which requires treatment. So, if in the beginning if you are able to identify these kind of issues, then it is always good. Now, if you look at mental health issues, you can say that there are certain things related to the mental health. This is the data which I am going to provide from the latest survey of the Mental Health Survey of India, which is conducted by the Ministry of Health, Government of India. Okay. And this suggests that at least 10.6% of Indian population has some sort of mental disorders. Okay. It means out of 120 billion people that we have, at least 12 billion people have some problems. This is not my information, this is the data. You can refer to the website Mental Health Survey of India 1516. This data has been taken directly from there. Okay. Of course, this is not as big as an American population, where you will find around 25 to 30% people, American population has this kind of mental disorders. So, still in a better position, but this is again an alarming situation, where you will find that 10.6% of population have this kind of problem. Okay. It means it is a serious situation which need to be looked into. 0.8%, it means at least less than 1% have a serious mental illness, right. Serious mental illness, then they need to go for medication treatment on a regular basis, and that requires continuous supervision. so that they can lead at least a life, not even a normal life, right. Look at some of the data. 1 in 20 people in India suffer from depression. Again, this is the data from the same source, right. So, it means that 5% people in India suffer from depression. Moving to the next. High prevalence of substance use disorders. It means lot of people use drugs and alcohols. This is a major problem, okay, in our country, and this is a data which is collected from the all the states of the India. It is not related to one particular state. The survey is conducted in the entire all the states of the country. Okay. Look at some of the uses. Tobacco 20.9%, alcohol use 4.6% of the total population, right. So, you know that India is a big country and such a big population using it, and you know that it is affecting their health, their family, their relationship and all kind of things, right. And that is why mental health is a major concern. Okay. And you know that the most affected is the productive age group, that is between 30 to 49. Okay. So, the most of the problems related to mental health is happening with these kind of peoples. Okay. There could be some problem with the old age group, but this is the most productive age group which is working in the organization, and they are having these kind of problems. So, if you look at this data, it really gives an alarming situation, because this is a big problem, especially when you are talking about mental health issues, okay, in India, and this is coming straight from the survey of mental health in India 2015-16. Now, after discussing about the status of mental health issues that is suffered by the people in India, we have to see, yes, what are the problems, mental health problems, okay? And if these kind of problems happen, what could be the various outcomes? What are the outcomes of these kind of problems? What happens? Okay. It is going to affect their family life, their social life and their work life, right. At least 70% of people suffering from mental health issues will not be able to have or cope up or adjust in their family life, their social life and their work life. So, this is one of the impacts that you can see. Then you also have you know that if you have mental health problems, this is going to interfere with other activities like your eating, how you manage your finances, okay, your relationships or activities in your family, a group or in society or even in educational settings also. Okay. So, these kind of problems are very, very serious, and if you look at the data which suggests that yes, we need to look into these issues very, very seriously. Then coming to the next stage, that what are the major problems that people have, especially mental emotional health problems. Now, this could be related to adjustments, they could be basically external factors like rape, incest, battering, crime, all kind of things which can create a lot of emotional trauma in the people, especially in the working group. Then there could be problems especially to sexual problems including impotence, okay, and that can cause a problem. Problems related to the family also, divorce, marital issues. Okay. Then there could be other problems like depression, suicide attempts. Okay. You know that it has been found that under extreme depression people commit suicides, okay, without realizing the impact, okay, because they know that once they die they are not going to look at anything, right. And this is a trend that is happening. Okay. You must have heard the news that farmers committing suicide because of the financial problems, students committing suicide because of depression, because they have not been able to perform well because of the emotional and mental health issues. So, these kind of problems are recurring and increasing day by day, and that is why it is a major concern for the policy makers and the management of these kind of organizations. Then they also have difficulty in so far as related to the adjustment and coping with the family and the children, right. You know that if you are drunk, you go to home and then you beat your children, you beat your wife, these kind of things have been very common, okay. And then you know that this may also lead to sexual harassment at the workplace, because you are under the influence of substance abuse drugs or say alcohol, you may engage in these kind of things, and which is going to affect you greatly, and you may lose your job also, right. So, these kind of problems may happen, and that is because of this, and then you get into the legal troubles, financial troubles, because if you are charged with the sexual harassment, there is an act as per the government of India, and it is going to take care, and even if it is found true, then you might be terminated from the services. So, you lose your job, and then this is going to create further distress for you, and then there could be financial problems also. Okay. So, all kind of issues are associated with these kind of things, right. Then if you are addicted to gambling, that is another issue, because if you are going to lose money. So, the idea here is that why I am giving these statistics and the problems that is recurring and increasing day by day, that there is a need by the management organizations even at the national level to have a policy framework to see that what needs to be done, and why there is a need to take care about these mental and emotional problems at the workplace or even at the other level also. Because this is going to affect, especially if you look at the workplace, it may lead to absenteeism, poor performance, lower job satisfaction, you may not be happy and satisfied with the job. You will not be able to take a decision, because some of the faculties may not be able to process information. So, the cognitive ability is become dysfunctional, especially if you are under the influence of alcohol, because you are not in a position to take right decisions. Then there could be conflict, interpersonal conflicts may be there at the workplace, and you may engage in violent and aggressive behavior at the workplace. So, now if you look at mental and emotional problems, this may cause severe damage to you as an individual, your family, your relationship, your life, okay, and all kind of things. And that is why there is the requirement that you must look into these problems, and that is why companies need to have some kind of assistance program that we have talked about to help the individual to overcome these kind of problems. Now, if you look at in the context of India, we will talk about two major actions which have been taken by the government, okay, to take care of the mental health and other issues. Okay. That is right of persons with the disabilities, because sometimes if you are going to discriminate people, then this causes problem to those who are physically disabled, because with this physical disability sometimes lead to mental problems, because they are being isolated, they are being discriminated, okay, and all kind of things happen with these kind of people. So, they have to deal with them properly, and the other one is this Mental Health Care Act, which has been 2016 actually 17, which has been amended. It actually it was passed in 1987, but again it has been amended recently in 2016-17. So, these two regulatory frameworks have been there to help individual as a part of assistance program at a broad level, that is at the national level, okay. And then everyone has to go by this, even organizations have to go and abide by these kind of acts at their workplace. That is why that as a part of the workplace you have to provide them the friendly say infrastructure, so that they do not need to climb up, you need to provide them walls and slopes and these kind of things, so that they can move to the place very easily. So, these kind of things have recently coming up, and that is why if you look at the Right of Persons with the Disability Act, okay, so you have to provide, all organizations have to provide barrier free access in all kind of physical infrastructure and transport system, whether you are getting to the buses, trains, or even in the houses, you have to provide them that it is not going to create them any kind of barrier. So, that they have free access to these kind of places. Similarly, also need to ensure basically the accessibility in public buildings, especially the government and the private both, it is very important. So, you cannot discriminate them. Similarly, you will also find that yes, you have to have some kind of reservations for them, so that they can come up, and the government has been thinking about it, and there that we have a reservation, it is maybe 1 to 2%, but now the government is thinking to move it to 4%, okay, of the total population, depending upon the requirement. Okay. And then the guardianship, they are going to act under the guardianship of the district court to ensure that whatever decisions are taken related to them is being taken care by the district court. So, the court also interferes if you are going to take make any kind of discrimination. So, there is a possibility of being sued and taking legal actions against those persons who are not going to provide these kind of facilities to the disabled, right. So, these are some of the important things, and then it is the government has made it mandatory to have boards at the state level as a central level to deal with the issues of the disabilities. Okay. And if you are not going to follow them, there are penalties also, okay, which may cause you financial problems or as well as imprisonment also. Okay. If you are not going to provide them all kind of facilities, I would discriminate them on any account, right. Okay. And then you have to provide effective mechanism for ensuring that their empowerment and true inclusion into the society. Okay. So, that this ability does not lead to mental health issues at a later stage, but so they are not stigmatized, they are not discriminated, they do not feel isolated, they also feel that they are a part of the society. Now, apart from this, you also have Mental Health Care Act, and this is very important, because if you look at this mental health care, it ensures the right to access mental health care and treatment from the health services. Okay. And that is a major amendment that have been made in the Mental Health Care Act 2016 by the Indian government. Apart from that, you can also see that it compels a state to have a mental health program. So, each state to have its own mental health programs. Similarly, other issues or other provisions in the bill that says that if you have this kind of problems, so you can go to, you can seek assistance, okay. And then it is the responsibility of the mental health professionals or the mental health departments to provide assistance and treatment for any kind of mental illness that people have, okay, if they approach you. Okay. And then you also recognize the role of caregivers, especially with the family. Okay. So, you need to provide it is the responsibility of the family to provide all the support that is required for the treatment. Okay. And you know that earlier, if you are going to commit suicide, then you have to face legal action. Now, so a person who commits suicide is presumed to have severe stress, okay, and he should not be punished, because it could be a result of depression. So, this is one change that has been made in the legislation. So, there is not going to be any case against you. Okay. So, if it is found and it is found correct that you are this problem happening because of you are under extreme stress or depression. Similarly, you will find that yes, there is a central mental health authority and state mental health authority who is going to take care of these kind of activities, okay, in every state. So, you need to have boards, especially at the central level as well as the state level, to ensure that they are going to take care of these mental health issues in a serious way. So, we have talked about the mental health status in the country. We have also talked about the acts dealing with the mental health activities in the country, right. And then you can see that why these actions were required, why do you need these kind of regulatory frameworks, because it is required by the employees to pay attention to these mental health issues, because earlier organizations were not paying attention to these kind of issues. So, maybe after the enactment of these acts, they would be forced to take care of these kind of issues in their organizations, right, and probably it would force them to carefully manage and address such problems, looking into the severity of the problems and the way it is going to affect the health, life, work, relationship, all kind of issues, right. So, if you look at this employee assistance program, what is the approach that is used to solve these kind of problems, right? Because if you have a mental health issues and the management has an employee assistance program for you, the idea is to help you to solve these kind of problems, right. And then you go through those steps that is to be looked into, right, starting with problem identification to follow up. So, you go through those steps to provide the necessary services. Okay. So, the idea of employee assistance program, that your work should not be affected, because it provides a livelihood. Okay. So, work is very important to you, because if you are not going to work, then you are going to lose your livelihood, your earnings, you may be terminated, your performance is going to be affected, and ultimately this is going to affect your personal life, social life, family life, even work life, and that is why it is very important to look at that, right. That is what I have been talking about. The work performance will actually is going to affect your personal problems, okay, or it may be related with that one, and that is why you should encourage employees that if you have a problem, please come up. You need to educate them also, so that they are able to recognize that yes, they have a problem, and once they are able to recognize that they have a problem, at least half of the problem is over. Now, because once they know that they have a problem, they would think about that how to get out of this problem, okay? How to go for cure and treatment. So, this kind of problem does not happen. So, if you look at some of the basic characteristics of this employee assistance program that is offered by the industries. Okay. So, first of all you define the problem in terms of performance. So, do not define it in clinical terms, because then again the person would get scared. Okay. He would feel threatened that he has some serious mental problem. So, you when you are going to talk to the individual, you say that see your performance is affected and there could be something that need to be looked into, right. So, that person is comfortable, and that is the job of the counselor to ensure while he is establishing relationship, and as a part of the assessment he has to see that he is not going to use clinical terms that is used in mental health or the counseling, okay, to make it easy to go for assessment and treatment. Similarly, you also need to see that line managers, supervisors also monitor what kind of changes are happening in the behavior of the employees, right. I gave certain examples like employees are coming regularly and suddenly you find that he keeps absenting himself, okay, and all kind of things are happening. So, it is the responsibility of the supervisor to see that where there is a deviation in the behavior of the employees, and if there is a deviation in the behavior of the employees, that it means that there are certain problems which needs to be looked into, right. And that is why it is very, very important that you approach EAP in such a way, so that you create an enabling environment to help that out. So, that the person does not feel threatened out of the situation. Okay. Now, what are the behavior problems that might happen, especially related to substance abuse? You know that we have already talked about absence, high incident accident rate, poor job performance, relationship with the co-workers, right. So, the idea is that once you identify okay, these are the problems that is happening at the workplace, the counselor has to go for a constructive confrontation. It means that he has to confront with the person concerned in a very positive spirit to ensure that this person is helped out. The idea is to see that he is not, you are not going to create further distress by telling that you have this problem, you that problem. For example, if you go to a doctor and you have several problems, and if he exaggerated that and says that oh, this is a very serious problem that you have, then you feel threatened, right. So, the idea here is that you are going to treatment to a person or a counselor, and it is his responsibility to help you out, right. So, as a part of the process, you are going to provide some kind of constructive criticism or what you call this confrontation to the individual, so that he is readily come out and get some help. If it is not constructive, then it becomes destructive. Destructive means that the person feels threatened, he will not go to you again, and it all depends upon whether you have built good relationship with that person or not. And as a part of the assessment, have you certain things which he find threatening, okay, he feels scared. So, if that happens, probably he will not go to you again, okay. Maybe after one sitting or two sitting, he will stop going to you. So, it is very important that you continue to build or sustain that relationship at a level where the person is motivated enough to continue his treatment. That is very, very important, because it is not a physical ailment where you give certain medicines for 3 days, 5 days and the person is going to be cured. It may take time, maybe 6 months, maybe a year also, to totally get rid of the problem. Okay. So, you need to maintain the same relationship throughout this process unless the person is cured. Okay. So, the kind of confrontation that you are going to have basically to see that how the person could be helped, to get the information for the assessment and to ensure that the recovery is there. Okay. Since it is a long term relationship, you should need to be very, very careful about it when it comes to this one. For example, you need to monitor performance, and if he is having poor performance, do you ask him what is the reason, and maybe that there are certain problems that he is facing, because of which he is not able to pay attention. Okay. There is something else in the mind. So, that needs to come out, right. If he is not able to perform because of lack of knowledge skill, you go for training. Okay. You ask him to go for and attend counseling services, because that is going to help you. Okay. Sometimes you also see to it that if you tell him that if you continue to perform poorly, then you may lose your job also. Okay. So, you are using certain approaches depending upon the requirement to ensure that he is motivated enough to continue his treatment and get cured. That is more important. In a typical employee assistance program, usually what happens? You have very clear policy, responsibility, okay, of the people who are associated with this, with the objective to see that the performance is improved. Okay. You go for campaigning, making them aware what kind of problems they may face. Supervisors also need to be trained, so that they can identify if there is any behavioral deviations, there are certain problems with their subordinates, so that they can report it, right. Then you are going to provide clinical services, especially counseling services, either internally or externally, that is depending upon the requirement, and finally, you are going to have some kind of follow up or monitoring. So, now if you look at this employee assistance program, it starts with having a good policy from the management, a established process through which you are going to carry out, and who are the persons who will be responsible, starting with the line managers, HRD professionals who take up this job, along with the counselors who is going to help them. Okay. Similarly, as a part of the process, you need to go for campaigning about these kind of issues, so that the person could be helped out, right. Then you also need to train supervisors, so that he is able to recognize that yes, if there is a problem in the people working under him. And then you also need to ensure that you have a good counselor, either internally or externally, who is going to provide, and then you go for continuous follow up and monitoring of the case, unless you find that yes, there is a total cure, right. So, this is a typical EAP assistance program that it can be offered to the employees, and it could be made effective provided you go through it properly, right. So, you think that it could be accepted generally that yes, now you have a problem, it is cured. Okay. So, make sure that unless you are sure and counselor certifies that yes, now he does not have a problem, and there is a behavioral change which is coming out from the feedback of others, maybe supervisors, maybe line managers or fellow colleagues, and they say that now he has come back to his normal behavior, you should not accept it. You cannot say that yes, this employee assistance program is effective. Okay. You are not going to simply accept it that yes, it has happened, okay, because again there might be backtracked. Then though effectiveness rate is good depending upon the kind of process you adopt, and whether all the stakeholders are engaged in the process on a continuous and regular basis to ensure a speedy recovery of the people. Then you have to see that what is the cost in terms, you are also going to look into it in terms of cost benefit, how much money you are going to spend on these kind of services and what is the benefit, because if there are poor performance, absenteeism, accidents which may cost lot of money, and then you are going to save this money, and that is basically at the cost. So, you need to make investments in these kind of programs, so that on the one side you are going to helping people to overcome these problems, and you also saving lot of money in the problem. Okay. So, it is more humanitarian approach that you are going to adopt, right. And when it comes to evaluation, go for an objective evaluation, make sure that you are able to say that yes, you can quantify the improvement pre and post counseling in terms of behavior or performance that has happened, so that you are able to establish your credibility, who is going to offer I mean as HR department, who is going to offer this kind of program to the employees. And when if you look at the role of the HR professionals, HRD professionals, it is very important, because especially it is their job. So, it is they are responsible for initiating and carrying out these kind of programs in the organization. So, they have to establish cost benefit analysis, as we have looked into other cases like training and other things, that yes, there is a need to go for establishing your credibility using cost benefit analysis, so that you can convince the management about its utility or usefulness, right. And you also look at the replacement costs, okay, so that you can tell the management the replacement cost is very high, and if you are going to treat these people, it is going to be less costlier, even the person will be happy and satisfied, and the performance would be good, and also the performance would be good, right. So, these are some of the things that need to be looked into, so far as the role of HRD professionals are concerned. Okay. So, you know that nowadays behavioral healthcare management issues are coming up, and that should be a part of the health insurance and these kind of things, or as a part of the health policy, that should also be included. Okay. Thank you very much.